thanks for joining us here tonight, Truth Brigade, on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Our special guest tonight is Sienna Leah. She is the author of Stealing the Moon, Revelations of the Deep Shadow Self. She's joining us all the way from Ecuador tonight. It is so good to have you here tonight, Sienna. How are you doing?
Great, Christie. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you for being here. This is a really important topic, and, a lot of us aren't aware of, and those who are probably want to stay in denial of it, because it's just kind of gets a little yucky sometimes, a little messy. Nobody wants to admit that we've either been in denial or that there is a shadow self at all. So, Sienna, if you could paint us a little picture about your experiences in the mental health system and some of the things that you had to overcome before getting where you are today, traveling the world, teaching people, helping people, and writing books, and all of these wonderful things you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, it didn't start that way. I should say that the book is it's creative nonfiction. I create a character, Dr. Natalie Stern, who's a psychologist, and she goes through circumstances that are all based on fact and research that I did over 30 years. And in the process of that time, the book came out of that, out of a very deep and radical research into the effects of patriarchy on the feminine psyche and things that I never found in psychology. By the way, I'm not currently a practicing psychologist.
Okay.
So it took me a long, long time to gain any foothold on how to cure myself. I was a troubled youth. I attempted suicide when I was 16 years old. I spent time in a mental hospital, and a lot of that is in the book, exactly what happened there. I found that there were forces living in me as me that were pretty destructive, and I sought answers through traditional forms of therapy, but I didn't find answers there. I didn't find answers until many years later when I took this journey deep into the layers of my female unconscious, journeyed back through past lives, entered archetypal realms, and found this whole dark side that basically, through the personality that I had unwittingly created, was using my energies to do to live out dark agendas that I had no idea what on earth was going on. You know, we all talk about the heart and the paradigm shift and unity and wanting to come from a whole other resonant field and frequency, which is where the galaxy and the universe, the earth is going, and where there's so many more awake and aware people are wanting to realize this. And there's more energy to realize it than there probably has ever been, or at least that we've been aware of it thousands and thousands of years, if not ever.
But the truth is, we're still kind of in the blame game. You know, we all want to be victims and, oh, it's them, it's not us. We don't want to take any responsibility for what we're putting out there because, truth be told, all it is a manifestation of our stuckness or our inability to deal with what's really going on inside of us. So it's not just them, it's also a reflection of what's wrong with us.
Actually, it's all a mirroring. We are basically projecting the unowned contents of our own unconscious nature out there, and until we get how to look at it in here and transmute that, own it, and integrate it, and move to a different level, the world stage is going to be strewn with psychopaths because there is a part of each one of us that is a psychopath. Now, to greater or lesser degrees, and I'm not I mean, I know that can be very upsetting to hear, that everyone has a psychopath inside of them. We have many subpersonalities. Some people are more balanced with it. They've had significant amount of nurturing and care and groundedness and stability in their lives, that they've been able to be much more integrative. And other people have been so brutalized, abused, oppressed, and taken down that this woundedness that we all carry from all of the years of patriarchy, this tremendous woundedness that is in so many people, drive us up against the wall to where we have relinquished a part of our soul force, our energy, our authentic self, however you want to say it, part of us, to be we've given in, to say we acquiesce, we become a part of the oppressive system in order just to get some relief. This energy enters us like like Dante's Inferno, the contract with the devil. These myths have been around in humanity for ages because it's true. They come for all of us. And we can talk about who they are, to take our energy because they're living off of our energy.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd probably be a good place to start, because I don't know if you noticed in Skype, I'm copying and pasting the questions there, and a couple people have already asked questions in those directions. And I'll just read both of them to you and answer how you feel. But they say, first, what can you tell us about archons, the so-called aliens or demons that take over our thoughts through fear? And the next one is, what's her take on entities versus our own shadow self? So getting back to the they, who is the they? Okay, very good point. And, of course, I don't have the answer for that. I can give you a lot of theories about that. The one that resonates the closest for me, because of what I've discovered in my own unconscious and in the people I've worked with, is the archonic theory. And, there are many theories. There are theories that we've been spliced by alien, the reptilian agenda. They all have compelling arguments. There are many, many theories. But the thing that unifies the theories is that there is some sort of predatory race or beings. Lash and the Gnostics believe that they literally were created when the earth was created, and that the archons are inorganic beings, and they cannot live. They're very jealous of us because they cannot live in organic matter, that the only way they can gain a foothold is if we allow them in, if we want what they have. And the whole transhuman movement of the, interfacing with machine. Look at us all with all of our technologies and machines and our faces and computers and cell phones and games and movies, they've got our attention. The inorganic has our attention. And the inorganic wants to live in us as us, but we need to invite them in. And many people point to this huge event that was severely traumatizing to the human psyche. And some people say it was a pole shift. Some people say it was alien splicing of our DNAs. It was so traumatic to the human psyche that we were split apart in fragments, and that we relocated huge parts of our energy to the unconscious, and then tried to navigate this reality with this tiny little ego that is completely incapable of really steering that ship, and that what it is actually living off of, and it is this dark energy, and the dark energy, they have a symbiotic relationship. And the shift now is for us to reconnect with our larger and greater connection to life, and relinquish our addiction to the dark side. Because it's this symbiotic relationship that is basically a death trip. Where did you come up with the name of your book, Stealing the Moon?
Well, a lot of what I do is pray and ask Source, and I do connect with the Earth, with the energy of, what would you call it? Some people call it the galactic center. Some people just call it life, the Divine Mother. So it took 2 or 3 days, and it was based on the vampirization of our authentic selves. Men and women both have, what is the feminine energy? Let's define. I'm talking about our beingness, and not our doingness, our authentic presence, who we are. Everybody has their own vibration that is their essence. That's what connects us organically to the source. And this has been what has been vampirized and used to fuel the patriarchy. We have been lunch for the dark side. Literally, our beings have been the fuel and continue to be the fuel to perpetrate these agendas of destruction against life. We are so valuable. We are so honored. We have no idea how important we are, because one by one, as we disconnect from being the feeding tubes for these guys, they don't have any of their own energy.
Yes.
They cannot connect indirectly. They can only use us.
Exactly. Very good point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And negativity is not intelligent, because what that wishes to destroy the whole of life, what that is creating a war against creation, what intelligence is that? Negativity has got a built-in self-destruct mechanism, because anything that is that evolutionary will destroy itself. But it is very clever. The plot of how we've gotten entrapped in this, and how it's hidden in our blind spot, and how we are all have an aversion to looking at these aspects of our own fields that have become intermeshed with their dark agenda. This has all been very cleverly engineered and has been very effective till now.
Yeah, I agree. And that, kind of leads into one of the other questions on the chat. He asks, how can, and I'll put this word in quotes, normal people who are just waking up to this shadow reality change their perspective from focusing on fear to focusing on truth?
Yeah. Well, of course, fear is one of the huge tools that got us all into this, because there's so much that has been placed here to torture us on physical level. I mean, look at our environment. What do we have now? Chemtrails, bioengineered, toxic and by radiation, the collapse of the economy. I don't have to go on with your listeners. It's nonstop.
We are actually the ones creating their reality through our thoughts and our fear.
Exactly. Because the truth of the matter is that we have an opportunity as never before to create a new resonant field, to jump into this new possibility through creating community together, through opening our hearts, supporting each other out of our addiction to the dark side, out our clutching on to our alienated little egos and our nuclear families and hiding from ourselves and each other and buying into their system. We have the power to shift the field into a frequency of love, and it's game over. And they know that. They know that. But we need to figure out how to do it. And the key is, in my humble opinion, is community, is supporting each other, because we cannot get out of this by ourselves. I don't care how much therapy you're going into. It's too thick. Love is the healer. This is why I'm no longer a quote-unquote licensed professional therapist who cannot, it's illegal to love your clients, right? And yet love is the healer. Yeah. This is, you're a perfect, love your client. I'm not saying physically love or making love. I'm saying that love is the healer. But we can provide this for each other. I mean, that was one of the great things about all the 12-step programs. I mean, I don't agree with all that methodology. I feel in many ways they traded one addiction for another. But the great thing about that was it was free, and everybody showed up and just listened to each other and loved and supported and created a unity consciousness. We're all in this together. And that and anything else is what is going to bring us out of this.
Let's go back just a little bit. There were a couple more questions, and this kind of ties in with what you were talking about in the last segment. The first one is, with all these bad influences on the astral, how could we discern between our bad thoughts from these influences being beamed at us? And the next one is adding to Carlos's question, and how do we tell the difference between entities connected to source and those who are just trying to steal our energy?
We need to connect to ourselves. There's the energy of power and control. We need discernment now. We need to engage in processes, exercises, whatever it takes, groups together, learning together to discern. We need to recognize a lot of our thoughts and feelings are not our own. A lot of our and if we're in the ego, I'm not trying to make the ego bad or wrong. We have to evolve the ego and include the ego in this evolutionary process and allow the ego to come along with us as we reconnect with life. But we need to come to center. We need to develop the discernment of what these things are. And it is confusing. It is difficult. There's some simple ways to do it, but it's an in-depth process to know what is serving life and what is not serving life. The ego is all about getting the alone individual to survive at the cost of anything and everything. But as we shift into unity consciousness, as we change our values and decide we're here to serve the whole, that we're going to come from a place of care for life, of compassion for life, of consideration. As we shift, then the energy of life is what comes into us. It has a lot to do with our values and deciding to live our true values. But this is very difficult because we are so deeply wounded. For example, getting back to the feminine, not that it is just the feminine. Men have these issues. Indigenous have these issues. But, there was a Holocaust against women for 100 years. And this was a Holocaust against healer women, women who stood for their tribe, women who came forward with this incredible, compassionate, nurturing, this all-embracing energy that is the feminine that can be in men and women. They were brutally murdered for being witches. If they demonstrated healing power, the knowledge of herbs, connection with God, through all the patriarchy, women, it was illegal for women to say they had a direct connection to God. Yes. Only men were allowed to have connection to. You could die for saying you were talking to God. And these memories are in all of us. What I'm saying is the lifetimes where we had authentic connection to Source, to our divine essence, we were brutally killed. The dark came in and said, and not just, I've gone through a lot of these past lives with myself and with others where, women had to stand there and watch their children being multiple raped and dismembered, and that all the people that believed and trusted in them being massacred before they killed the women, and then they would torture them in halls. I'm talking about massive, horrific torture that imprinted the soul memory. Don't you ever show up as your authentic self on this planet again. If you look at the media presentation of what a woman is, what sexuality is, where we're getting plastered with these dumbed-down relationships, we're swept into a voyeuristic world. Yes. Well, first of all, everyone talks about sexuality, but we've been coming from these very suppressive models where not just our sexuality, but our emotions, our truth, our intuition, our what's real about us is made bad and wrong right from the beginning. I mean, all the structure. Go back to your family. You go back to where you were born in the hospital. They cut the cord, they slap you, they, the glare. Everything to disconnect you and
pull
to
you away from your mom immediately, and
everybody. You get the message is what you are doesn't work here, darling. You need to stop, and you need to get with the program. And the program is you do it our way. You be false. You live in a false personality, and and we all agree to this, and this is the collective shadow that every culture, every race has a shadow. Every race made a contract with the dark side. It's like we look at the outer police, and we know that we hate their oppression and suppression of human liberty. But what happens is that right at home, at school, at church, everywhere, the message we got is you become a part of the police. You internalize the energy of suppression and control. So you suppress what's real in yourself, and you suppress it in your classmates, in your family structure. It's all lessons in relegating authentic energy into an unconscious state. And so you end up with these robots, and who are they serving? They're serving this police force, this inner. We do it to each other, don't we? Don't we keep isn't that what we call normal? I mean, that's why I stopped being a shrink of any kind, because I found the job was to fix people that could no longer function in the matrix of violence, the broken people. And they were often the ones that were so sensitive, too delicate. Their authentic self was spilling over, or they were too much wanting to live their truth. And so they became the nutcases. And them, sedate them, fix them, and put them back to work, right, in the slave state. Yeah. But and we're all victims to this because there are some of us that had people that really loved us, that allowed us to be ourselves, that allowed us to explore what it even means to live in freedom and personal sovereignty and self-empowerment. Most of us don't have a clue what that would look like. And so we all do our little sellouts, and we know it. And we're not happy because it's a death trip. You could be the most successful. I've worked with these people, the most successful women in the world. You can be gorgeous. You can have a great car. You can have an incredible figure income. You can be
plastic
powerful.
Surgery.
But on the inside, if you're empty, if you can't feel, then you're one of the living dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Night of the Living Dead.
And that's what we have become.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Sienna. Let me ask you this, another question on the text chat. How does a critical analysis of our prevailing social myths help evolve our soul learning, like family, religion, corporations, money, government, sex, gender?
It's hugely important. We need to make a research, and we can't make ourselves bad or wrong for what we've been complicit with, because we didn't have a lot of choice. I mean, anybody who wanted to get anywhere, for the most part. I mean,
on the material and societal level.
Sells out. You go, this is a game. This is how it's played. This is who controls the money. If I want any of this, I'm going to play. But you don't just play. You become Bill Smith. Give a part of your soul force in exchange for being able to play. So we need to meet in small study groups. I really believe in studying together, studying society, studying the nuclear family, studying that our schools are jails of unconsciousness that are teaching us lies and helping us become robots, automatons, dumbing us down, feeding us garbage. And when we, completely eat it, and when there's barely anything left to us, we get a degree and we get to go be a slave in their system. I mean, we have to see the dynamics, and many people are. Mm-hmm. But we and we need to support each other. What is the nuclear family about? What are the dynamics there? How does, we get together in small and large groups to single out the black sheep and crucify them. Yes. And show, look, don't ever go there. Don't ever speak that truth. Don't ever show your sexual energy like that. Look what's happening to her. We massacre people. We make people martyrs to show us we better not stray.
Yes. Better do what everybody else does, to
create other kinds of support groups for becoming human. Because that's what we're talking about, is the loss of our humanity. This archonic invasion is a obsession with dehumanization, being cool, right? Having the grooviest machine, having the most video games, having your cell phone, having your this, even look at the models. Look at their faces, that mean, nasty, cold. Being cold is cool. Being human is being a cornball, is being vulnerable. I mean, these are values. The values, the transhuman values, are deeply programmed into the media barrage. And with all the whole message is, don't you dare be human. It's stupid, non-productive. You can't get the goodies, and it's going to hurt like heck. And you won't be popular. You won't find a boyfriend because nobody wants all that yucky, emotion stuff. I mean, they make being human like something really yucky. And we get this all along. And we learn too, in the playgrounds of your schools, right? The bullies, the nastiness, the cruelty, and that's never addressed in school. You're training your mind for certain programming, but all of the cruelty that people evoke on other people, there are very few structures that really address, wait a minute, what we're really here to learn is how to become human again, how to save ourselves from this cold-blooded agenda, how to save life that's threatened all around us. We don't have the capacity because we are perpetrating this agenda with the perpetrators.
We have a caller on the line, so let's go to our caller. It looks like our friend Charlie from Malibu. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Christie. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much for calling in.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, something that kind of came to me as I was listening. Being a man and one who is sensitive, and I'm an energy healer and have kind of integrated my feminine and masculine side. I was just kind of curious if you thought that, how should I word it, that maybe men in this day or even previous ages, from the abuse that women took, we're all from women, and men obviously have the X chromosome. We have our mothers, all the way down. If men tend to shy away from their feminine side because of the abuse that has been perpetrated on women throughout the ages, and it's almost like a fear mechanism that keeps men from acknowledging that side of them, or that side of us, I guess. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, and that may be possible, but I would also like to respond to that, if I may, in that, we women need to stand in a place that we have never stood. We need to own this destructiveness we perpetrated as the hit women for the patriarchy. I mean, we are the ones that raised you and allowed you to go into the matrix and told you that you better suck up your feelings and big boys don't cry and you need to be strong and you need to be you need to model yourself in the patriarchy. Now, I mean, women did it to survive. They knew that their sons wouldn't survive if they didn't destroy their emotional bodies in that way. But you see what I'm saying? That women need to stand in the place of life We need to not destroy our sons' connection to their own sensitivity. We've done that with the men. I mean, the men threatened us, and in order, I mean, for a long time, you either were a whore or a housewife. I mean, It's recent times that women could earn their own living. They didn't have a lot of choice. And so we went along with this. But this is part of owning our collective and personal shadow, to own that we've done this to you. And it's, we can't just be these feminists like down with the patriarchy, and we're so humanized, and we're so no, we've done this to the boys. I'm sorry, but we have.
We all have, absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, personally, my mom has always fostered me to embrace my sensitivity, and so I'm very grateful to her for that.
Yes, you are very lucky.
Made me the man I am today.
Yes, and you are a beautiful man, I must say.
Well, bless your heart, and you spread that seed, because this is what we need. We need men to have their feminine intact. It's just that, if you look at the ones who are in power, you can see that. I mean, look at what we do with. I mean, that's the emotional. But what about the sexual body? We demonize people for having sexual needs. We crucify them, and we create a life of such incredible left brain stress and suppression. And when our politicians and our leaders break and go try to get some relief, we demonize them. I mean, what we do to our humanity, and we all, we get off on it, because everybody, if you're not getting off on healthy and balanced and free expression of our life, then we're getting off on the perversion. Somebody asked a question earlier. Tell me if I'm jumping ahead too fast here, about how do we stop going after the Madonna whore image. It's like, I believe as women, I mean, I'm not excluding men here, but I believe that it's women's organic role to stand for the purity of our connection to life on all levels. There's a huge manipulation by the dark magicians to use all of the sexual chi as a force to dissociate us from our essence. Our essence is goodness. It is purity. They've done such a job on us. You're not going to get any, honey, unless you have this kind of body and you wiggle this way and you look this way, and you can be an object for a dissociated male model that wants you as a trophy and who cannot relate to a real human being. You've got to be a fantasy, an object that he can lust for like a machine, because he's been ripped out of the software that's innate to his organic being that allows him to connect to a real woman. And we all perpetrate this. So we know it's wrong, but we go along with it because, I can't understand. I just want to give me some. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we can talk like this on your radio show, Christie, but
absolutely.
I mean, we need to go, wait a minute, This is a huge vampirization of the core of our life force, of our Shakti force. And until somebody stands up for the truth of that, it's never going to change. I mean, they have got us so on that.
Yeah, and it seems to me that the women that are in power these days try to be like the men in power instead of embracing their own unique femininity. Hillary Clinton comes to mind, where, it seems like she's trying to be a man rather than embrace the totally sold out. The feminine. And
sometimes I feel that she did it because she cared so much that she wanted to affect change. And she looked around. Look, the only way I'm going to get any power at all is if I do it their way. Big mistake.
Right.
Big mistake. But who out there isn't making that mistake? They're all making that mistake. I mean, it's the way that game is played. And unless we disengage from that matrix of violence, that huge lie, that huge insult to the human soul, and pull our energy into a different expression, then, there's nothing else different out there.
Yeah, I agree. Well said.
I would just say, don't go for a guru, don't go for a authority, don't go for the answer for the cure for neurosis, the tool, the cure for this, the Messiah, the ascended master. Go for yourself. This is in us. We have all that we need. We just need to support each other to awaken and to come out of. See, we're so addicted to authority. We all want daddy. We're children. We've been kept children. We want a new daddy or a new mommy or a new understanding, a new truth. We're just so desperately lost. It's very hard to face. You know what? We just have to stumble through this together and empower ourselves and get out of these power and control games, these perpetrator. Either you're the perpetrator or you're the victim, right? All of these paradigms with the ego is old. Like, we are terrified of just becoming ourselves. And yet this is where the freedom is. So, don't listen to me either. I mean, if it was one thing I could say is you have it within you. You know when someone's suppressing you. You know when you're copping out. You know when you're being a jerk. You know when you're letting someone else walk all over you. Stop it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep. My intention with my healing practice is just to guide people to their own self-empowerment and to find their own purpose. And
that's beautiful. And you see, because you're a man who was loved and supported, so you have some authentic energy that can that can radiate and hold a space for another human being. So you are a very rare breed on this planet.
I've been told that.
You are a very, very special person. And I wish, there were more of you out there, because we need these spaces that are non-manipulative to wake from the dream. And there aren't many out there.
The more people that we have that promote self-empowerment, I think the better. And we'll get through this and turn it all around. And we'll all be better for it, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, Charlie, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your insights with us tonight. Always good to hear from you. Charlie's so sweet. I love to hear from him. But and I totally agree with you. We need more men like him in this world. And thankfully, in this arena of radio, we are able to find more people like that. And it's just really beautiful to see people of like mind and wanting change and really, just working on themselves instead of the blame game and, it's them, and still refusing to look at the mirror. So anyways, I just feel really blessed to be around so many beautiful, evolved people. Sienna, let me ask you this. I'd like to get back to, you said horror housewife, and on the text chat, they called it Madonna Whore Complex. How can we balance that and come to love ourselves and accept that, well, you know what? Sometimes maybe we can be both.
Well, I think that it is our responsibility to redefine our sexuality in a completely different context, in a radical reclaiming and redefining. I mean, a whore or housewife are patriarchal definitions of the feminine.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And in the earlier goddess cultures, sacred sexuality was considered a connection to the divine. And people came together. It wasn't a commodity that you sold. It wasn't a way to possess someone. It wasn't part of the perversion of patriarchal domination. women were chattel. You keep in patriarchy, and it still goes on in the world. You lock women, you own them. They're not, there's still clitoral, cutting it off and foot binding. They're horrible practices all over the world to this very day, mutilating the feminine body. Women were possessions. And so we need to redefine. I mean, what is even, and why? Because sexuality is a huge evolutionary tool. It's actually a way of evolving your energy, of connecting to source, of integrating your psyche, of feeding your souls. And it isn't owned by anyone. It's the energy of life itself. And it is those who stand for life, you could say that that's the feminine principle, for life, are no longer going to be in the mind prison of these patriarchal forms of sexual enslavement. So, what is a whore? Whore is somebody, you often see the happy whore, right? She loves her body. She's playful. She enjoys her sex. But that's all then subjugated and used and turned into a commercial venture. But, what is the image that we have for a woman who enjoys her sexuality? She's considered something evil, right?
Yes.
So it needs to be reinvented so that it serves life and not the powers of darkness, And I believe that it's a woman's responsibility to spearhead that, because women have through the mutation of the female psyche, through all these years of horrible oppression, terrible abuse, and subjugation, women still have a connection to life in the DNA, I believe, that and this is something that's very controversial, and I know men don't like to face this part of their shadow, but the male body has the genetic memory of all the years of patriarchy. Not that all men are patriarchs and are horrible oppressors. Many are like this beautiful man who is just on with us or want to be like him. But the memory of everything that mankind has been I believe, is in our DNA. And the Y chromosome is going extinct. There's research to show that the male chromosome is losing its life force. Why? Because predominantly patriarchy, which has been predominantly male instigated with women complicity with it, has been in a war against creation itself, against life. And therefore, life abandons that which it's trying to destroy, so that it's losing. Look at the mass. I know it's partly drug-related and pollution-related, toxicity-related, but look at the massive impotence, epidemic impotence. There are research studies showing that the Y chromosome is going extinct. And women need to awaken. The woman, the high priestess in the ancient temples, she never gave herself to a man. She was not owned. She was owned by life. She was a priestess that connected to the life force and gave that gift through sacred union to the male. And, and I know that Tantra is being reinvented, and there are women doing these kind of practices and men who are joining in. But it's a very, very difficult thing because our emotional bodies are so damaged to free love. And I don't mean free love like sleep with everybody in town. I mean that the freeing of love is a huge piece in what needs to happen. If we're going to empower ourselves, reinvent ourselves in connection to the sacred matrix of life.
Let me ask you this, though, Sienna. Do you believe that we all have the ability to evolve beyond this, meet, recognize, own, and transmute our shadow self, or are some of us just kind of going to be stuck where we're at?
No, yes, we all have the ability. What do we lack? The support and even the opportunity. A lot of people are so trapped in the matrix. They're trapped in poverty. They're trapped in illness. Some of the greatest evolutionary souls are trapped behind huge oppressions. And you look at the indigenous people here. I'm in South America right now. Some of the most earth-connected, beautiful souls are they have been so held down and broken. There's a huge healing work to be done with all peoples. Certainly some of us that have had the opportunity to have the even the leisure time, to investigate these topics and to evolve ourselves, we have a greater responsibility. Can everybody do it? Well, in the world that we're living in, they make it, isn't that part of the plot? To make sure that you're so stressed, you have to work so hard just to survive, that you have to deal with so many levels of toxicity, that your body is so ill. That do you have time to do it? Can you do it? Are you physically able to do it? They don't want us to do it. I mean, there is a big plot against us, so they don't. So we have to, it's a huge overcoming. And this is why it's helpful to have wonderful people like you that create this kind of space where we can engage in dialogue, where we can come together, where we can explore these topics, where we can support each other for this shift. And then that way more and more people will be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sienna, here's another question from the chat. He asks, can you tell us how finding your inner passion and deepest self-interest helps to make this transition from zombie to human being? What kind of practical shadow work can you suggest to locate our inner truth and passion so we can make better decisions for our own well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, there's so many processes and people, but basically, he's exactly right. Andrew Harvey, a marvelous spiritual teacher, he says he travels the world, and talking to the living dead, and he ends up screaming at people to try to get them. Where's the passion? It's been so beat out of us all. In any healing process, the first thing you do is you discover a passion for wanting your own sovereignty, wanting yourself again. And there are lots of ways of doing that. You can take yourself to a retreat, you can do creative writing, you can dance, you can be in nature, you can make love, you can look in the mirror and say, I love myself for an hour, or you have to find the energy. The soul, who we are, is energy. It's the energy of life. So however we can, if you call out, show me the way, pray, ask. We all have higher selves that are connected to the whole sacred matrix. If you want to find your passion, ask for it to show up. There will be huge synchronicities that people will show up. A new lover will emerge. A course will come in. To insist that you are going to pull yourself from a matrix of death to a matrix of life. You're going to open yourself and find the way. Ask yourself. We all have great wisdom. We have a higher aspect to our being that is ready to download a path.
All right, let me ask you this in our few short minutes remaining. Recently, the Dalai Lama said that Western women will save the world. What does that mean to you, and what is woman's natural role?
Well, I think what he meant is that we have had enough leisure time to be able, and to education, and that we perhaps have the big picture, global picture of what's going on, the massive amount of pain and suffering that the world is going through, that nature is suffering, that third world people are suffering, and now so many people, and so many species, so much of life. And there is the rise of feminine awareness, that we are the innate caregivers, that we are the embodiment of the feminine, therefore we need to step forward and heed the call to life and become spiritual activists and do what we can in small and large ways to alleviate suffering, to come up with solutions, to find a new paradigm, to no longer go along with, to participate in systems that are predatory and destructive of life. And that and many women are waking up to that call. And I would just ask us all to maybe take it a few steps deeper, to get a lot more real with ourselves, because we have that within us that is a destroyer of. Everyone does. So when we transmute that inside ourselves, we become very potent, energetic fields. And it is holding that field together that shifts us all out of that matrix of violence. So it is woman's natural role to be standing there and saying, no, Coca-Cola isn't going to desecrate this entire landfill, and no, we're not going to deforest this, and no, we're not going to mine this land and spill arsenic and mercury and destroy, the whole ecosystem here. And no, we can find solution, and and that we dedicate our lives to this. And there are many women who are waking up to this right now. And this is why it's so important for women to own the shadow, because there is the diametrically opposed opposite. When you oppress, and Andrew says that the divine, everyone says, oh, we want to bring back the divine feminine goddess. Well, she's been duct taped, strapped, chained to a chair, locked in a dungeon for the last 3,500 years. You bring her up, and say, here, save us all. Well, she's pissed, and she's hurt, and she's crazy. And this demonic Kali force is in all women. And you can ask men. A lot of times when men want to love women, this force of the reaction, the vengeance of the feminine for what has been done that she carries in her is unstoppable. And this is really what the book is about. And this is what our future discussion needs to take. To own that force, and it's a huge power that we can use for life. But right now there are many women in relationship that are really very destructive forces on this planet, because they don't even know that they have within them the whole memory of what's been done to the feminine on the planet.
Okay. Now, we have, about 5 minutes left. Let me ask you this. Do you think women are the natural leaders to bring us back to a sustainable future?
They could be. And they are. They have the potential. This is what I'm saying. If they own their shadow, if they're willing to feel with the earth herself, and many of them are, the incredible pain the earth has. I mean, look at what the feminine is. Look at Mother Earth, what she gives and what we do to her. That's in every woman. You look at every good-hearted woman who gives and gives and gives. The amount of abuse, the amount of lack of acknowledgement, the amount of being used and abandoned. There is a huge amount of vampirization, subjugation, just horrible stuff that the female has endured. So if she could get real with herself, and if men would support women to heal, because that's the other piece. I believe that the way that men will bring back their own, not go extinct, their DNA, is if they realize that part of what has happened is the men have destroyed and created horrible cruelty and brutality to the feminine. The way for a man to heal his soul is to support the re-emerging female soul, to provide her the nurturing, the great love, the great sex, the great empowerment, to not put up with her crap. I'm not talking about that. But to recognize her woundedness and to be willing to be a support. And this is how women will save the world, with a good man who's willing to stand by her side as she heals and comes into that full empowerment. And men have to allow this. There are many men that recognize this is their next evolutionary step.
Yeah. Wow. That was beautiful, Sienna. And it's not that you're saying, well, oh, that's all bad. We need a matriarchy, right? I mean, this isn't a
equality
ruling class thing. Yeah, I think it's you're seeking, or we all are seeking, the balance of the divine feminine and masculine. But we certainly can't deny this has been a patriarchal dictatorship
dominating
thousands of years.
Yes, it's the domination over. It's the suppression. It's the domination. And whether it's a woman and believe me, there are patriarchal women, and there are, believe me, this is not exclusive to men. As a matter of fact, that's the point of my book. Women are the ones that are in many ways, the real juice behind the patriarchy at this point. And that's a topic for another time. But that is the core of my book, is my own exploration that I was one of those dark sisters that was fueling this.
Wow. That is very bold of you to say. And I really want to thank you again for your honesty and sharing this with us. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. Abundant blessings and love to all at Truth Brigade Radio.